when I went into Chipwrecked, I thought like, oh, like I had good memories of this. Like when I was younger, I wasn't stupid enough. Like not at the age where you're stupid enough to just like gobble up anything, like the Smurfs movie. But I was at the age where I realised that like there are good movies and bad movies and comically bad movies.
Where is he?
Maybe you'd like to try a meatball.
Unbelievable. So the first Alvin and the Chipmunks was alright. The Squeakquel, a bit of a letdown compared to the first, but luckily it constituted enough interest in the Chipmunk franchise to make the third movie, which I thought at the time was the best, Chipwrecked. There's a gale force winds outside right now, so if you hear anything like banging, it's... What's that fog? Hey! Whoa!
Whoa, what if the chipettes? If you have to eat one of the chipettes, which one would you eat?
Upon revisiting Chipwrecked, I have to say, it let me down more than I remember.
I forgot that this movie has songs in it. And that it's just nightcore.
The plot was not able to carry the movie for an hour and 30 minutes. So, because I went through the effort of watching this, oh my god, this movie, this inverted commas movie, I'm gonna have to put you through it now. I'm gonna take you on a journey through Chipwrecked. The plot follows the same central characters as the movie prior, the Squeakquel. We follow Alvin, the leader of the Chipmunks, who is just a prick and a retard, which is a common theme. Simon, who's a nerd, who I hate. Luckily, they play a clever twist on Simon's character in this movie, which I'll get to later. Theodore, the fat fuck. Theodore is the fattest chipmunk I've possibly ever seen in my life.
Why don't we all just relax and have some donuts?
Fat cunt.
Ah, bastard.
Did you guys want some?
Then you got the Chipettes, who are basically the same, but female. So you got Bridget, I think. Yeah, Bridget. She's, like the Alvin version of the woman Alvin. She basically has the same flaws. I think Jeanette is the smart one. And I'm just going to call her female Theodore because she's really unimportant, and I only remember her from one thing, which really annoyed me, so she has no respect in my eyes. I'm just going to refuse to call her by her real name. And then the human characters of importance, Zoe, who was, to be fair, not in any movies before this point, but she's very important for this movie. Dave, the classic father of the Chipmunks. He's a failed musician, so he just uses the Chipmunks for his own... I don't know why he does it. He's a bit sinister, really. And Uncle Ian, who is by far the best character. Like, Uncle Ian, just uncontested.
Well, as crazy as it sounds, I hate it. What?
Not that good.
I don't think there is a better antagonist in any movie. And do you, like honestly, email me. If you think there is a better antagonist than Uncle Ian, email me. And I'm going to delete that email, because you're wrong. And I'm not even going to look. The movie begins at the port of... It doesn't say, but I'm just going to guess like Chipmunk Land or something, right? So they're getting on the cruise ship with one rule. One single, very simple rule. The Chipmunks are 7 years old, and their one rule is just be sensible and not break any rules. Which is quite reasonable coming from Dave, who in the last movie was like put in a coma because of the Chipmunks' shenanigans.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
So they board the cruise ship with this rule, and immediately cause such carnage. Like, I don't know how it's possible for Chipmunk... I mean, it's a movie, obviously. I guess this didn't really happen. And like, Alvin goes to the captain, he gets on the bridge, and like, causes the Costa Concordia too. Dave is not happy with the Chipmunks' tomfoolery. So he's like, Oi, Alvin, you gotta stay in the cabin while I have dinner with the captain.
We're having dinner with the captain?
No, I am. You're staying here.
Why is
You
he having dinner with the captain? What? Genuinely? He's on holiday. Like, he isn't on a business trip.
For some reason, Dave has to have dinner with the captain, and it's not like, it's never said like, oh, it's because Alvin was mucking about, so come on, Mr. Dave, because you're clearly the owner of these enslaved gerbil rodent things, you've got to come have dinner with the captain to atone for their sins. He's just like, yeah, I'm off to have dinner with the captain. So he's like, okay, Alvin, all you've got to do is stay here and be sensible, because one strike and we're like off the ship. That's a quote. With this simple instruction, Dave leaves. As soon as Dave leaves the cabin, Alvin cleverly decides that his best course of action, after being told that if he breaks one rule, he'll be kicked off the ship, his next course of action is to go gambling at the age of 7. So he runs off and Simon follows him, leaving Theodore all alone to watch Jungle Monster, which, to be fair, the prick deserves it.
What's wrong with this movie? It's for babies! Which is probably why
That's a good line.
Yeah, like Theodore, think about Alvin.
So wacky hijinks ensue, and the pelican on the ship is like, spills gravy on Dave? He spills gravy on him? This movie tires me. And the captain is like, Dave, I'm being serious. One more strike and these chipmunks are out of the ship. They're you know, again, simple instruction. Dave leaves, immediately finds carnage on the boat due to the chipmunks, which, like, can you just put them down? Can Dave just put them down already? Like, what are you? Then for some reason, okay, I don't get this. For some reason, the captain, who has made it very clear that one strike and the chipmunks are off the ship, decides to give them a second chance. Which is just, no wonder the chipmunks don't follow simple instructions.
No more half measures, Walter.
So the chipmunks decide, you know, even though we've been given this simple instruction, and we've been given an extra chance, let's disobey Dave. Alvin decides to trade donuts for a fat child, like human Theodore's kite. I don't know why. Like, he could have just bought one, or like, he is a pop star, he could like clearly afford one. I mean, he has mini chipmunk suits tailored for himself, so I don't know why he needs to, like, barter with this fat child. He gets the kite, ends up tying it to, like, Dave's chair somehow, and they literally almost murder, like, multiple people on the, like, commit manslaughter on the deck of this ship. Like, Dave is just knocking out women, children left and right. The chipmunks have caused carnage once again. Pelican, who is Uncle Ian, surprise, is having none of this. And he's like, oh, Dave, you killed the chipmunks. Dave is like, I'm going to save the chipmunks, even though he should just let them die. Uncle Ian is like, no, Dave, you can't hang glide without the hang glider pass. You devilish man, I'm going to... And they sexually assault him for some reason, and then they end up hang gliding off the ship, which is definitely in violation of many laws. So, the circumstances that got them into this classic everyday predicament are quite believable, clearly. That's the end of the first act, as I like to put it. That's the first act over. So far, the movie is just about ridiculous enough to be funny. Like, I must say, I did enjoy the first act, overall. The second act was where it started to lean into so bad it's bad, which was not a promising sight.
I'm not one of your chipmunks that you can just boss around and stuff into a cage whenever you feel like it.
That was you, Ian.
Calm down.
The second act begins with them finding this island, and Theodore's being fat again, trying to eat his donut. They get to the island, and they're like, oh, we've made it to land. Theodore, let's eat the donut. And he eats it all by himself. I'm so angry. Why can't he just... They should literally just eat Theodore. Why didn't they just eat Theodore? He ate the entire... Like, it's 3 times the size of him. At the same time, by coincidence, Dave and Uncle Ian turn up on the other side of the island, and they just assume the chipmunk's there, so go looking for him. Because that's very sensible. They don't, like, try and use a phone. I don't think Dave ever tries to use a phone. He just kind of assumes the chipmunks are there, and is like, yep, off to find them, come on, Uncle Ian. And Uncle Ian is, like, making death threats against him. because Simon's a nerd and he has glasses, he uses his glasses to like make fire. Problem is, in the first movie, he got these lenses from a little Santa doll, so they clearly don't have lenses, so I don't know how Simon accomplished this. They sleep under wet leaves to keep themselves warm, which is quite counterintuitive.
Stupid cunt. He's so
Hate
stupid.
They wake up and decide to go foraging in the jungle. Oh yeah, they fight over a mango, because the fat one is fat. After they fight over it, the nerd one is like, yeah, this is the reference, and they're all like, yeah, crisis solved. But obviously now, like, the one bit of conflict for this section of the movie is over. So in the exact same seconds after, they introduce the next thing, which is
You're gonna murder David.
Oh, it's a woman.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and I'm clearly a girl.
Zoe, who's like this woman. I probably should have made that more dramatic, but she just kind of turns up. Zoe's like, wow, chipmunks, oof, you can sing? That's crazy. I wasn't really listening at this point. I was kind of comatose, a form of comatose at this point of the viewing, like dead in my chair. The chipmunks are like hungry, and Zoe's like, oh, I got tons of food, just come with me. So they go with Zoe, and she's got like a whole jungle adventure course stuff. She's built like a whole obstacle course. I don't know why it's so complicated, but she's got like zip lines and like funny army training. And there's no real explanation for why she decided to make a zip line instead of like a ladder or a staircase. But I guess she prefers it, and like it works, so more power to her, I guess. While they're all distracted doing like fruit stuff or whatever with the woman, Simon gets bitten by a spider and basically does like Spider-Man. Wakes up and he's like, oh, I'm Simon, blah, 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 and he has a weird accent because they like, I think it's supposed to be French, but it's not really French. So in the Chipmunk universe, spider bites don't make you Spider-Man, they make you French. On one hand, Simone is almost unbearable, and he's such a plot device. Like when something's going badly, they're just like, oh yeah, because Simon got bitten by a spider, he's now like buff. Like he was really weedy before, but because he got bitten by a spider, I guess he's just like, it's like steroids, so he gets buff and he's like really charismatic or whatever. It improves on Simon, because I don't think I could have put up with the movie if Simon was there the whole time like, Alvin, we need to, Alvin, oh no, Alvin, the chipmunk, the chipettes, they're hungry. Oh, Alvin, we need to use a flare. Even though it's like an improvement on that, it's still not an improvement because they just made him French. If he was German, I would have been a bit happier. Because of the woman, she's like, oh, you know, you guys are pretty cool because you're chipmunks that can talk, and Simone is French, so I'm going to show you this epic place. So she goes to this watering hole. She's like, yeah, you can swim here, there's like a waterfall, it's really cool. And then Theodore's like, double rainbow, what does it mean?
Double rainbow.
Rainbow. What does it mean?
And like, there's no joke, nothing happens, he just says it, and no one questions it. They go to this watering hole, and because Simon's a beast, he like breaks the laws of nature and fights this fish, and he rides the fish like a horse, which doesn't work because there's a fish. Finds these ancient treasure, and he's like, I found ancient treasure, and Zoe is a bit sus. I'm gonna skip. There's an entire scene of Dave and Ian like having a bonding moment, and then Theodore confuses Ian's footprints for the jungle monster. And then they have a brawl. Actually, that's the only good bit. Dave and Uncle Ian brawl. They think a volcano's gonna erupt, and Alvin's like, "Oh, Dave is, Bridget Jones. Dave's forgotten about us." Oh, he becomes edgy Alvin. He's like edgy. He's all emo, edgy. He's like, "Oh, Dave's forgotten about us. It's because I was such a screw up and I blew it on the ship, and oh no." They just try and force Alvin to character develop, even though he's clearly showed no sign of remorse through the rest of the movie. And then just like that, in the same scene, Dave just turns up and he's like, "Don't worry, Alvin, I literally love you." And Alvin's like, "Cool." Conflict resolved. One scene. Conflict starts in one scene, ends in the same scene. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked. Everyone realizes that the Simon Chipmunk, the female Simon, is missing. So they're like, "Where's the Simon Chipmunk?" Turns out, Simon Chipmunk has been kidnapped by Zoe. Ah! Plot twist! Zoe kidnapped the female Simon to use her, because she's a chipmunk size, to steal the gold that Simone discovered. See, it's building, plot building. And then she says a weird line. Just gonna let you hear it for yourself.
I can't hold anymore!
If you can still talk, it means you haven't stuffed your cheeks yet. Yes, that sounds very good.
Nothing more to say on that, really. Then Dave turns up and he's like, "Oh, stop!" And then they basically like just stop, make it back to the boat, and Uncle Ian's there, and he's like, "Guys, we're gonna escape. Where's Dave?" And they're like, "Oh, Dave's back at the thing," and Dave's like about to die. And this is why I don't get why Dave decides to stick up for the Chipmunks, because he just went on this random. He could have just like survived, and he has enough money to live on from all the chipmunk slavery, but instead he decided to go on this adventure to get the Chipmunks back, and then risks his life, almost dies, and the Chipmunks just abandon him, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Dave's back there." So Uncle Ian has to go back. I don't know why he does it, because throughout the movie he's clearly shown that he would like Dave to die, like unironically. But so then they all go back to the ship together. The island literally explodes and they should not be alive. And then boom, credits. That's the end of the movie. At the start of the movie, I was like, "Oh yeah, Chipwrecked. I remember loving this movie when I was a kid." And then halfway through, I was like slowly fading. I was like, "Oh, you know, I felt like Lenin after his second stroke." And then by the end, I was literally like Stalin after his brain hemorrhage. Best part of this movie, upon finishing it, was the after credits scene, which involves Alvin causing a major terror incident, and it is left unresolved. Unfortunately, even though that scene was definitely the best in the movie, by this point I was so done. I was just so done with the movie. I couldn't like find myself enjoying it. I was like, I could tell what I was watching was like somewhat humorous and or shocking, but my brain lacked the facilities to react in any meaningful way. So I was literally like, I felt like one of those rats in those like drug tests where they like pump them full of like a human dose of ecstasy and see what the rat does, and the rat just like dies. That's how I felt. Alvin and the Chipmunks made me feel like an ecstasy rat. In conclusion, with my dive back into Chipwrecked finished, and my gut very full of bile and vomit, and my brain very full of rage, I turned off the movie, cried, did a big poo, cried a bit, and then I rated the movie 2 chips out of wreck.